welcome back. Thank you to the business team for bringing us that. Okay, now we're getting into the conversation that you've been waiting for and that I've been looking forward to all morning. So yesterday, there was Parliament. There was the second session, or the part 2 of the walking out, the voting without the other party present, and almost a repeat of Friday, but perhaps with opposite results. And interestingly, this morning, I have one member from the majority and one from the minority, and they're going to explain to us what happened so that we can really understand. Really, you know, it's not just what we hear. We want to hear it from the horse's own mouth, right? So I have Mr. Edward Bauer, he's the MP for Bongo, joining us, and Dr. Dixon Adumako Kisi, he's the MP for Anya Sotom, and of course they represent the minority and the majority. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. So Mr. Edward Bauer, let me start with you, because the big question this morning is, why did the minority walk out?
Thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers. If you watched television very well yesterday, there was no walkout.
Okay.
We just did not come into the chamber.
Okay, so show up.
Yes, we didn't show up. It's not
Okay.
that we walked out. And this was based on some activities or some occurrences that happened on Friday. You recall on Friday, as part of our normal processes, anytime the budget statement and economic policy is presented to Parliament, members have the opportunity to debate the motion. And usually the last day, which was Friday, 26th November, is the day that the leaders wrap up the debate. And then Mr. Speaker then puts the question as to whether the House will approve the budget statement and the economic policy or not. So that was done. The wrap-up was done. But in the course of that, there was an agreement that the Minister of Finance wanted the leave of Mr. Speaker to make a statement, as it were, on a few things. What he basically told us had to do with the fact that he felt that he wanted to engage, particularly the minority, a bit further on some of the concerns we had raised in the course of the debate. But Mr. Speaker said, because he was not a member of the House, the leave can only be granted by the House, and therefore he put the question. So when he put the question, in Mr. Speaker's own determination, he thought the noes have it, that the House was not ready to have any further consultation. Particularly when the position of the minority was that those consultations should have been before the budget was made. As per our rules, the majority came and then called for a division. The division is simply to say that in the opinion of that member who gets up to talk, that he thinks that Mr. Speaker got it wrong, and that maybe the opposite was true based on the ruling of Mr. Speaker. So the majority came up with a division. Whenever there's a division, Mr. Speaker will have to ensure that anybody who is in the chamber is a member of Parliament, because it is a voice vote. And so it's possible that in the course of people saying either yes or no, people who were not members may have said it. And that could have influenced Mr. Speaker's judgment. And so the whole lobby is cleared. And if you're not a member of Parliament, you either walk out of the chamber or you join the gallery. Because you know that the gallery, that is where all the media people and other things are. So at the time, when Mr. Speaker asked that the lobby and every place should be cleared for the second voice vote to be put on, we all heard some noise. Noise we didn't understand exactly where it was coming from. But later on, our understanding was that members of the majority group were a bit agitated because they saw the General Secretary of the NDC in the public gallery. So at the time when Mr. Speaker was struggling to understand why the whole confusion, they chose to walk out. Normally, in parliamentary process, if you walking out is a legitimate tool that you can use. But at the time of walking out, usually the leader of the House will stand up and say, because of this and that and that, myself and my group cannot be part of this decision. They can stage your walkout.
Okay.
So usually
it's voiced.
It's voiced that. So you say it.
Okay.
But all we just saw was that they walked out, led by their backbench.
Okay.
So they walked out. So Mr. Speaker then went ahead to follow the various processes. Remember, the division was not called by the minority.
Okay.
It was called by the majority. So the process was at the instance of the majority. So Mr. Speaker went through all the processes, and the vote was done. And that prayer that was given by the finance minister was declined. Then Mr. Speaker then went on to follow the normal processes of when we end debate, and that's putting the question on the motion itself that was moved by the finance minister on November 17th. That's about the budget statement economic policy. So that was basically what happened. And Mr. Speaker made and went. Fast forward, the argument of the MPP throughout the weekend until Tuesday, yesterday, was that what the NDC did and what Mr. Speaker superintended over was a constitutional illegality. Their argument was that per our standing orders and the Constitution, that's 1041, and then 109, that's the standing orders 1091, that at least before a decision can be taken, we needed to be at least half. And for them, half was not 137. And so on the strength of that, what we did was a constitutional illegality.
When you say for them half was not 137, does that mean that for you half was 137?
No. So no, I'm just trying to rehash their position.
Okay.
What their position
So
was.
quick question for you, and this is from social media and from the average Ghanaian. We've over the past few days we've been educated, and we understand that you have to be 138 because you can't round 137 and a half persons to 137, so 138. So on Friday, when the budget was allegedly rejected, were you 138?
So that is the point. That is the part I was just coming to. So at the time they walked out, remember, the whole idea of even voting on that issue was not introduced by the minority.
Okay.
It was introduced by the majority.
Okay.
2, they had not told Mr. Speaker that we were walking out.
Okay.
So if you go to our votes and proceedings, the members of parliament were 274.
Okay.
274.
In the building.
Yes.
Okay.
274.
Okay.
So they said it was a constitutional irregularity. Then yesterday, I just want to give you the hypocrisy.
Yes, sure, go ahead. We're very interested.
The hypocrisy in this. Then yesterday, one, if you go today and look at the vote and proceedings of Parliament, the total number of people who would have been there, at best, would have been 138.
138?
At best.
Okay.
Would have been 138 in terms of the vote and proceedings.
Okay.
And the vote and proceedings, when you go every day, and my colleague knows that, you just sign to show that you have come. Yesterday, when Parliament was called, the minority didn't show up.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use any vocabulary you want. The minority did not show up. Then, and I'm going to just give you a few things. The acting clerk read Order 13, 2. And this is what Order 13, 2 says. Order 13, 2 says that whenever the House is informed by the clerk that at the table of the unavoidable absence of Mr. Speaker, the first Deputy Speaker shall perform the duties and exercise the authority of Mr. Speaker in relation to all proceedings of the House until Mr. Speaker resumes the chair without any further communication to the House.
Okay.
That is what. So yesterday, if you recall, the acting clerk read this to the House. Now, with your permission, go back to Order 7. Order 7 indicates, and I will just read just the definition of who is a speaker, what a speaker is.
Okay.
Because usually people just think that Mr. Speaker, and I say this because if you recall, the deputy speaker in the counting, when they counted 137, he said 137, and he himself as the MP of Bekwai. They said, if you look at 7, that's order 7, the speaker. So it says that speaker or Mr. Speaker includes a member presiding in the sitting. A member presiding. And Joe, what do you call it? Joe Wise, Joseph Osewusu.
Yes, yeah.
Is a member who was presiding. So when they say Mr. Speaker, that's what it means. Now you go to 109. I just want to put this thing and put them under. So 1092. They say Mr. Speaker shall have neither an original or a casting vote. And if upon any question before the House, the votes are equally divided, the motion shall be lost. So basically, we're trying to tell about the fact that Mr. Speaker did not have an original vote. So for the purposes, if you look at all these various, provisions I've given in the standing orders, and of course, you look at the provision of Article 1041, which talks about the fact that you must at least be half. And then 109, that's our standing orders 1. That also says that we must be at least half. Mr. Speaker, for the purposes of decision making, Mr. Speaker, who was the deputy speaker, could not be counted as a member present, and on the basis of that you take a decision. Okay, so we believe in allowing people to answer questions for themselves. So why don't we listen to acting Mr. Speaker explain to us exactly why he voted?
He did not vote.
If you missed, okay, why he was able to take part? Is that a better description?
I'll come in. Let's listen.
Okay, so should we take a listen to that?
The window.
Honourable members, the number presented to me by the clerks at table is 137 of you plus me, MP for Bekwai, 138. Honourable members, for the avoidance of doubt, let me read out the constitutional requirement so that there's no confusion as to who can vote, what numbers are required to take a decision. Article 104(1). Except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting. The vote of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. What it means is that before you take a decision, there must be at least a majority of all members present. With me, we have 138 members. That's a majority. It doesn't mean that all the 138 must vote yes or no. A majority of this 138, their decision will carry the day. So I'll go ahead and put the question on the motion proposed before us. All in favor of the motion, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried.
Other interested in who said no, that would be interesting. So I think that what the speaker sought to establish was that there were actually 138 people present, and also that as long as there's 138, not all of them have to vote yes, but the majority of the 138 have to vote yes. So that's what happened.
Yes. So I'm going to do a service to the Ghanaian people to bring this thing to a very simple understanding.
We don't have. You're not going to send us an invoice. We don't have to pay for it.
Okay. I mean, very simple thing. Now, the language used, says that there should be 138 present. 138 members present. Now, let me add further that out of the 138, if 5 people absent themselves, it doesn't matter. If 30 absent themselves from voting, it doesn't matter. But on that day, out of the 138, if a majority of the decision makers say yes, so that means that if 80 says yes and 10 says no, even out of the 138 present,
it's still a yes.
It carries a day. So what I need to elaborate and make clear to my Ghanaian folks and my colleague here is that the rules are that there should be 138 members present for the question to be put. And the speaker necessarily, in this case, did not vote.
Yeah.
But the voices that were heard were a majority yes.
Of the 138.
Okay. So let me just go further and add that if, when the question is put, and there are 138 members present, and a number of them say are absent from this voting, and you have a majority out of the 138 members present, or even, let's say, minus the speaker, the beauty of what happened is that the Speaker of Parliament, okay, is not a member of Parliament, but the 2 deputies.
They are.
And unfortunately, in most of the parliaments in the rest of the world, when the first speaker assumes the chair, they address him as the first speaker. When the second assumes, they address as the second. But I've realized that it's become sort of a norm in Ghana that we don't distinguish between the first, second. We just say Mr. Speaker. So that is just one of those, let me say, it's become a Ghanaian thing. But as I've observed in the UK and other parliaments that we mirror, when the first deputy is there, they say first deputy. Now, with our Speaker of Parliament, who I respect a lot, he's not a member of Parliament. So that day, there were 137 members present.
But he couldn't do what the first deputy did and count himself as a member of Parliament.
As a member. And the rules, let me be very clear, because it says that present and voting. It doesn't say, 138 should be voting.
Okay.
You understand? So invariably, and the first speaker is a member of Parliament, and he's present in the chamber. So there were 138 members present. And if we went further and he wanted to do a head count in terms of the voice votes, then we would have noticed that Mr. Speaker necessarily, but if we had, out of the 137, if it's a split, and that one is not even an even number. If you split 137, it's not even.
It's not.
So if should in case, he had to also add his vote, then I would accept that there's a constitutional breach. But in this case, and then the rules are very clear. He should be present.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, but just listening to you, it seems as if there might be a little bit of ambiguity, and it seems like it's the interpretation that a lot of Ghanaians are struggling with. Because I'm sure Edward he's disagreeing with you. So obviously it's not as clear cut. It is subject to interpretation.
But will he agree to the fact that if there were 138 members present and the votes cast was 90 against 10. Would he agree to that?
Would you agree to that?
No, obviously. You see, I'm a bit confused about his, and not as a result of disrespect, but I'm struggling to follow your argument. And I'm making this point. You see, it's not for nothing that the framers of both our Constitution and our orders, standing orders, seem to be very elaborate in their provisions.
Okay.
If you look at 1093, it says, a deputy speaker or any other member presiding shall not retain his original vote. Now,
the argument here is that he didn't vote.
Listen to me. The reason for you being at least 50%, that's half, present, is because they want to ensure, as per their logic, to ensure that the decision you are taking, you have at least 50% taking that decision. The moment any of the 2 deputy speakers elevates to the position of Mr. Speaker, the person ceases at that particular material moment when he is presiding to be a member of the House.
Oh, no.
The person ceases at that moment.
So you're using the same arguments that they used to annul Mr. Speaker.
We are just trying to expose the what do you call it, the hypocrisy.
But then, just one moment. If you're making that argument, then it also stands that Mr. Bagbin
quorum.
was not. He's not a member of parliament.
Yes.
Therefore, there was 137. Sorry, let me just finish the point, just so that our viewers are following.
Yes.
So Friday 137, Mr. Bagbin was present, but he wasn't counted.
Yeah.
If that same argument applies from what you're saying, that since the first deputy speaker was now the speaker, therefore he shouldn't exercise any sort of authority loosely, as then it was still 137-1. So if Monday is annulled, then Friday is also annulled. It's the same.
If Friday is annulled, then
Yeah, I mean,
The
so it's the
situations are
same.
different. Remember, and I explained this to you. Remember, I indicated that when Mr. Speaker put the question and he, in his assessment, he felt the nose of it. It was the majority that challenged the decision.
That was one question.
I hear the point.
And that question
Be
was
patient.
about Finance Minister, his prayer.
Can I make my point?
That was a different question.
So at that time, at that particular moment, they called for the division. That's the first point. Okay. Two, I drew your attention to the fact that walking out is a legitimate tool employed by every group of people.
Okay, which is what
so
the majority did.
However, in doing that, usually the leader gets up to state the basis under which they are walking out. They never stated it.
Okay.
They never said anything. So we will rely purely on the votes of proceedings, which was 274.
May I come in?
But of course, I can understand. And you know one thing, I can understand that even when they called, let me just, okay, sorry about that.
I was just going to ask you one thing.
Okay, do.
After we, quote unquote, walked out, there was a head count after we walked out, which established the fact that there were 137.
The head count. So the head count, and this is the point I'm just.
They established it.
Can I make my point?
Yes,
please.
You recall that because we were 274, and I want you to pay attention to that number. The 274. What it meant was that even if the NPP were to be there, the best number they could have had was 137 as well. Let me make my point. Mr. Speaker called for the head count on the basis of the fact that he worked on the assumption that there was going to be a head count. So he asked all of us together. That's why they counted the answer. They didn't state that they boycott. They put there that it was nil. I don't know what I'm making sense.
Were we present in the chamber?
So even if they were in the chamber, they were going to lose. They were going to lose because it was going to be 137 and 137. And our standing order says, anytime a motion does not have a clear winner and there's a tie, the motion is defeated. Okay. The motion is defeated. And so, I mean, the situations are not the same.
This reminds me of 2 + 2 being 22 for some people and 2 + 2 being 4. And as the rules have it, my dear, let's not complicate it. You need to have 138 members present to put the question. We didn't have 138 on Friday, true or false? He agrees they didn't have the 138.
I didn't say that.
So
I have just given you.
Are you saying that you had 138
it's like,
present when the question was put?
I don't know.
No. Are you saying that you had 138
We had
present?
274.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now
In
then
the
I...
house.
In the house. We had 274.
In the chamber? So are you saying that if I'm at the
Okay,
parking
does the
lot...
law say in the house or in the chamber?
Let me make a point to you.
It's a chamber
You
thing.
go to court. You go to court as an individual. You go to make your case. That, look, you are the applicant. You go to make the case. Then at the time they are determining the case, because remember the division was not at the instance of the minority. Okay, it was at the instance of the majority. That's the first point. 2, at the time they were supposedly walking out, they never stated to Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker even went out of his way to ask what was the issue.
I was trying not to even go into that. We stated categorically that how can you walk out the finance minister whose budget or who's spearheading the president's budget and then maintain people in the gallery who we had agreed on that because of COVID, besides the media, there should be nobody in the gallery.
Okay, so you walked out because the finance minister was asked to leave.
And he maintained the general secretary of the party.
So I'm going to ask you a question on behalf of Ghanaians, observers who are concerned.
Yeah.
So just to address Ghanaians, there's a trend on social media, there's a thread going on that actually the NPP didn't have enough members on Friday, which is why you staged this sort of, and this is not my question. This is a thread on social media about the fact that one of your members of parliament was not in the country. Therefore, you actually didn't have enough members present. So that was what all of that was about.
You know, what was sickening for me personally was the fact that Finance Minister has come per the minority's request.
So now you answer the question.
I'm coming back to you.
Okay.
Finance Minister had come per the request of the minority that they wanted amendments or changes to the budget. And he had come to plea that you give him time for engagement so that those things would be, looked at more thoroughly. You say no to that. And then you still go ahead and then, as it is, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's what happened on Friday. So that we were wondering, in one breath, you want Kita Sea Defense added to the budget. In one breath, you wanted ACA's energy deal reintroduced in the appropriate language. Besides that, you wanted
E-levy
taken out. You wanted E-levy as a no-no.
Oh, yeah.
The initial stand was a no-no. You wanted all of these things. Finance Minister thought that the engagement was not enough. And better late than never. If even he failed, quote-unquote, per your assessment, to engage you much earlier. Now he's come. He's realized that, dang, I made a mistake. I should have had instead of extra classes with the NDC. And I've come to plead for extra classes with the NDC. The NDC is saying no. And yet, so they had a stance that whether you tell them something good or you even acknowledge and accept the fact that, okay, we can put in Kita Sea Defense into the budget, their stand was that regardless of whatever negotiation you are coming to the table with, we are saying no. And that was a very interesting stance. Now, his claim that if we had a tie of 137, we would be at 0. Now, let me even add further. The finance minister...
Is it a statement of fact?
It's not a statement of fact.
It is. Should I read the portion for you?
No. What I'm saying is that...
You need to refer to the...
No. What I'm saying is that you are assuming
I'm not assuming.
that we would have
I'm stating the fact.
We don't even know how many people of us would have voted against it. We don't know. Do we know?
So the point I'm trying to say, the best outcome
so you can
would have been 137.
Okay.
Would have been the best outcome.
That would have been one of the outcomes. It would have been one of the outcomes. Now, the key point here is that, listen, as we go round and round and round, Finance Minister still had an equal right to come and place the same budget on the table.
Okay.
If supposing it was lost, he could still come and place the same thing. Nothing stops you. They say at first, if you try and you don't succeed, you try again. He could have come back really bought the time to do the extra classes with the NDC, which is what they wanted.
But you see
now, unfortunately, even as of yesterday, my good dear viewers, we engaged them further, okay? And they still stood their grounds. And we realized that, these guys were not ready to play ball. And what really hurts me the most? This is a budget that has come in hard times with COVID and all these challenges we've had as a country. And this is not the time to bring Ghana back. We need to move forward. We need to move beyond pettiness and just party lines. This budget solves problems for all of us. One good thing, when I have flood problems in Anya Sultum, when we solve the flood problems, the rains that go into people's houses, it doesn't go to NDC or MPP houses. The issues addressed by the budget are for all Ghanaians. Students' assistance, job creation, it's for all Ghanaians. I don't think you get a job and they see you as NDC or MPP. So we are wondering why, and you know what kills me? My minority folks every day inundate us with questions. When is this going to be done? When are you going to get funds for this? When are you going to help the school get a new facility? All these 133 plus questions. There are solutions in this budget for that. And yet you say no to it. Does it make sense? Then what's your point of coming to the chamber every day and asking questions? When the solution has come to you directly, read it, note it, assess it, have your critiques, which are acceptable, And a credible a minority or a credible opposition should come out with alternatives. And more importantly, state categorically. And when it is acknowledged by the finance minister, because I was happy that Ken demonstrated somebody who was listening to them, in the sense that he came out and acknowledged four key things.
You're spoken enough. Keep quiet.
Drink water. Four key things. And
I mean, you're just
No, I'm not rambling. My point is. Let me end for you. One, on Friday, we all agree, per what we saw on TV and what happened, they did not have 138 in the chamber or present. That is the point. To go on with the second question. And if the minority was a credible minority, the minority leader should have pointed out to the Mr. Speaker that, Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate because not too long ago, under my own leadership, Anidoho, the Speaker before, came out and said that we had a decision where we had 133, and it didn't make up to the 138. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we are erring constitutionally here. And that would have been the beautiful thing that a credible opposition would have done for this country, instead of creating all this unfortunate misinformation, miseducation of the public. And that is what I'm expecting, that a credible opposition will come out and accept and admit that there were not 138 members present, so that we move beyond this and help build this country.
Let's reduce this conversation to the bread and butter issues.
I was just going to say that I want to move on from the 138, 137. But let me ask you a question, actually. Yeah. So yesterday, the budget was approved. Do you feel like, as the minority, that perhaps you could have handled it in such a way that you could have negotiated better for the Ghanaians? And I mean, it's not really to say that, you failed, because the fact is that most Ghanaians don't like the budget, because it is very revenue targeted, and it's fine because we need money. But those who don't have money are going to have to pay more. So people are going to suffer.
Not pay more.
You are going to have to pay taxes that were in there.
Let me tell you something.
It's not a fair share for those who don't have enough.
The good news is this. And yesterday, the minority leader hinted at that. I may have to tell my friend, the fact that the economics, the budget statement, the economic policy of government, quote unquote, in their opinion, has been approved.
It's not really in their opinion.
No, don't worry. I'm just
I mean, for the sake of our listeners, because we need to be careful about the narrative.
We are going to the floor today.
If you disagree at this point, it's not really just an argument in Parliament anymore. It's going to have to go to the Supreme Court, or it's going to have to be elevated. No, can you just clarify that for me and for our
That's the point I'm making.
Okay,
and I'm just trying to tell them, we have a number of tools to employ.
Okay, to do what?
On this particular, the position of First Deputy Speaker. And today, obviously...
So we're still going to try and annul...
Don't worry, I have not said that. I have not said that.
Okay, so
and
what
I'm
are
just
the
saying
tools
that, you see,
for?
10 o'clock is not far from now.
Okay, but what are the tools for?
Appropriation.
You see, and now listen to me very carefully and be patient. That's why I indicated that the budget statement, the economic policy, the approval of it is not the end in its all.
Okay.
As we speak now, the estimates, because all that you have said here, the estimates will have to go to the committee level, voted upon at the committee level, and voted at the plenary.
Okay.
Even the taxes, every tax is supported by law.
Yes. So
those are all going to be done.
Okay.
And so the fact that the budget, the statement, the policy, the economic policy has been approved does not necessarily mean that all these various provisions will go see the day.
So it's a green light for further
That's the first point.
Exactly.
The second point I need to indicate is that the NDC, because he was talking about alternatives, the NDC never for a moment just started maybe criticizing without doing anything. We had 5 issues, and those 5 issues, I think they were things that we we said one, the E-levy. The E-levy in itself was regressive, and this was not only the NDC saying it. Just as at yesterday, ISA had indicated that anything beyond 0.5% was going to make the tax regressive. Okay. And it was punitive. The NDC was ready to have a conversation with them that between 0.5 and 1%, we could tolerate that. Okay. Taking cognizance of the fact that you said you were trying to move towards fiscal consolidation. Okay. So that was one aspect. 2, we said that for the Keta defense project, we needed a budget line for it, because this had to do with Ghanaian lives. Okay. Ghana has many times even using the president's...
Kita just came to Ghana recently, of course, because during your governance, there was no Kita, I guess.
No, there was.
No, but I don't think that's...
You see, no, but you know something? No, I'll respond to him.
Yeah.
You will recall that the first phase of that Kita defense project started in 2015 and ended in 2019. So we expected that the second phase would have taken place. And since 2019, there has not been any budget allocation for it.
Okay.
So all we were asking was that provide that.
So it was a gentle reminder.
Yes, so provide that.
And he agreed.
3, the JEPA. You recall, you are a media person. That civil society, the whole attempt of collateralizing, what do you call it, our minerals incomes, was something that was a no-no.
Yeah.
So we had indicated that. In fact, you recall that Matnamidu's write-up on that.
I do.
4, the AKE. You had come to Parliament with a policy of government that you wanted to negotiate the possibility of offloading shares from AKE to GNPC.
Okay.
Parliament had given you an approval to go and negotiate. You then go and state specific figures in terms of the fact that government said that they should offload 70% of the south, what they call it, the deep water.
He's acknowledged.
So we said that should be reworded.
Okay.
Last but not the least, we talked about the benchmark, what they call revenues. We said, do not go ahead with this.
Yeah.
These were the things they were not very unreasonable.
No, they were not
They
unreasonable.
were not. And it mirrored the sentiments of Ghanaians, the people that we represent. Remember, the executive represents the state and the parliamentarians represent the people. And so there was a possibility that we could do that. And we were ready to have this conversation. You chose otherwise. That is why the minority leader yesterday...
Did they choose otherwise, though? Was the majority unwilling to hear?
Let me tell you, there were certain things for the majority that were non-negotiable.
Okay, like what?
The issue of the E-levy.
Okay.
It was non-negotiable for them.
No. Per what I understand, and let me be very clear here, Finance Minister said, let's sit down. Maybe we can come to 1.5. But scrapping the E-levy entirely, that one, yes, we said... So, no,
listen to me. Okay. And in my conversation, I have not even stated anywhere that in the course of our negotiations, we indicated that you should just scrap it off. That's the first point. 2, you recall that the Minister of Finance had the opportunity. He had the opportunity when he was finally reading. No, when he was reading yesterday. He talked about the fact that there will be some concessions. What were the concessions? Did he state them?
Did
he state them in the concessions?
To the committee level.
He said that
appropriation. You've stated here.
He
has even stated here.
It's going to come down to 1.5%.
No, the question is that the Minister of Finance. It's not what Afenyo-Markin said. Afenyo-Markin is not the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance had the opportunity yesterday to have told Ghanaians that, look, because he was giving the last word before the approval, that in that thing, he could have indicated that, look, I am going to reduce the rate from 1.75 to 1.5.
Power.
No,
it's a committee.
It is a proposal of government. At the time, the finance minister
before the vote went,
yes,
he could have said that.
Because that was his proposal.
That's his proposal.
That's his proposal.
But it is so subject to the committee.
Did you hear of any concessions?
You are here agreeing that
we haven't heard of any.
Yes,
he's here agreeing that the committee level, a lot of things will happen. He's here agreeing.
The point I'm just trying to say is that we cannot for a moment pretend to be using wayside conversations as a basis of our budget.
It's committee level wayside.
No, what Afenyo-Markin said, what you are saying, they are wayside conversations. No, the man had the opportunity on the floor of the House to make those concessions. He didn't.
Because then if he had, then 1.5% would have been the starting ground of the negotiation.
Yes.
But he didn't, so the starting ground is still 1.75.
We are assuring the Ghanaian people that at the appropriations level in the committee, there's room for changes. There's room for changes.
Yeah, no, assuring that there's room for change doesn't necessarily mean an assurance that there will be change.
We have indicated. We have indicated.
Finance Minister during his speech, even yesterday,
every single item will be voted for. Okay. And we should be ready for that. Every single item will be voted for.
Well, that's good for good governance. I know we use a lean approach at some point in time, and I would hope that the lean approach, which is a smart thing to do, will be looked at by the NEC. And it should be about Ghana first.
But
I really think
you know
so.
The interesting part again. Yes. There was another area The minority actually yesterday indicated there are other areas we can save money.
Okay.
Government is proposing to build a new chamber for Parliament. We said as we speak today, we don't need a new chamber. That's an investment we can do without.
Let's not go there.
Government is
let's go there. Why not? I mean, these are the things
advisably.
that I'm interested in.
So you want to be patient.
Advisably.
No, I'm serious. Because we have, look, you recall that even when the idea of the chamber came,
I remember.
Our General Secretary warned every member of Parliament of the NDC that anybody who voted for this should be ready to lose his seat. Because this was something that did not meet the aspirations of Ghanaians. So we had indicated the whole idea of buying another presidential jet didn't make sense when we had one seated down. These are areas we could look at. Trade, we said, look, the road tolls, you are taking this out. Can you imagine a Burkina Faso vehicle comes to Tema Port, loads items, drives all the way from Accra through Bolga to Paga without paying a dime, with that load on our roads?
They'll buy fuel in Ghana. You can't move this trip without fuel.
Either
I'm just saying.
you'll buy fuel.
And they'll pay tax at the port. Or they'll pay tax at the port. Let's be realistic.
I believe your media house would have covered the issue
gets revenue in so many
even
ways.
The workers at
they will eat during the transfer.
The sellers.
Or they won't eat.
You know, you get to all the toll booths.
That is one of the baddest things. Let me use that thing. Listen. From an insurance perspective, people who trade at tolls put themselves at risk. And it is not good for governance. You know, let me tell you, if one person is maimed at the toll booth and insurance and suits were appropriate, like government will pay dearly.
Get them jobs.
We'll pay dearly.
Get them jobs.
No, listen.
Unemployment has risen up to 12.5. Get them jobs.
Safety
Get
first.
Them jobs.
I have an engineering perspective. Safety first. Don't tell me that putting people's lives at risk at the toll booth is
better than going home to die.
Can I just say that people whose lives are being put at risk at the toll booths are actually more concerned about earning money to pay their children's school fees? Because we went there to speak to them.
Governance is about making sure that people work in a very safe environment.
Yeah, but it's also about
I would hope that my member of parliament will not argue that it is right for people should be selling at the toll booths. I worry.
Yes, I agree with you.
I worry. Look, go to accident centers, see the number of motorbikes that hit people at the toll booths during the traffic hours. It's painful. People are losing their lives.
I'm going to speak to
Should
Dr.
you lose your life
now?
Selling tomatoes?
Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Dr. Draman, good morning again. It's been an interesting few days, hasn't it? Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Awesome. So just, first question, apart from the fact that this has been really interesting and this is what we expected from having a parliament with the numbers so close, what do you think about the process that happened yesterday and the conclusion? And I think most importantly, the prospects of having an agreed budget implemented that actually favors Ghanaians?
Well, let me say good morning to the honorable members who are with you. What happened yesterday, for me, I don't want to go into the legalities of which side is right or which side is wrong. But I was very hopeful that, when we heard that there was a marathon kind of discussion during the course of the day, I was hoping and praying that the two sides will come out, in a situation of a win-win for them, and then I think ultimately this would translate to a win for our country. What might have happened, I don't know the details, but I have said on your platform yesterday that, look, at the end of the day, no side perhaps is going to get, all that they are asking for. The NDC might not get all the 5 things that they are asking for in the form they are asking them. And maybe the minister might also have to reconsider certain things so that at the end of the day, we see perhaps everybody taking some steps to the middle so that we can have some compromise position at least that would let this country continue to run. If you remember, I mean, let me just take you a little bit outside of our jurisdiction. Recently, President Biden took a very big kind of a signature infrastructure bill to Congress. At the end of it, he got half of what he went to ask for. And he said, well, I mean, half is better than nothing at all. And I think that this is an indication of how democracies work. So, I mean, I don't know the details of what transpired yesterday. Perhaps maybe one side, I mean, was sticking to a position that was non-negotiable and so on and so forth. I don't know. But, you know, my worry is when I heard the minority say, forget consensus, forget compromise going forward. Every matter is going to be subjected to a vote. That is something that we have to take very, very seriously, and we have to find a way of making sure that it doesn't happen. Because if that is going to happen, we are not careful, we are going to have a lot of gridlock in this country. I have seen parliaments that have been gridlocked for 4 years and nothing really happened. And at the end of the day, it's we, the ordinary citizens, who are the receiving end of these policies that are going to suffer. So I think my plea to the two sides, and I know the honorable members represent their sides, is that it's going to be very important for us to find a way to continue some serious conversation. When I hear the honorable member from the NPP talking about the attempt by the Minister for Finance to have some negotiation, and I hear his point, because many have said that it was too late. Yes, and then he says that, I mean, sometimes it's even better late than never. So maybe the NDC should have listened to the minister at that point and see, perhaps in the interest of building consensus and so on. But I also have to hasten to say that, you know, really consensus has to be built on a continuous and on a daily basis. So I like what I heard from the minister and his attempt, but I hope that, I mean, the minister will keep this spirit and continue to negotiate with the other side on a daily basis, you know, so that at least we can find a way of making our country work. Because you see, what the two sides have to remember is the fact that, you know, when we have these disagreements and this kind of tension in Parliament, you know, the investors are watching, the international community is watching. We want to raise funds out of this country. We want people to come and invest. Nobody is going to bring his or her money in an environment that shows a lot of uncertainty. So at the end of the day, there is no one group that can get out of this as a winner. And so for me, I go back to my point right from day one, that look, the character of this parliament, the numbers that we have, both sides must remember that they don't have the kind of numbers that they used to have in the 6th parliament, in the 7th parliament, and so on. We can wake up in the morning, there is a critical matter before the House, there's a vote that's going to be taken, and maybe some members are not well and they cannot come to the House. What do we do if we are not in a spirit of negotiation and compromise? So for me, I think my message, I mean, is the same. Legalities are not going to win anything for anybody. And if this matter gets to the Supreme Court, for instance, we have a country to run. The budget has to start being implemented on January 1st.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. We have a situation where we don't have a budget yet, for instance, if the matter is in the court and is dragging and so on. What do? We have seen other countries where there have been shutdowns of governments, and we have seen how people have suffered, even in those spaces where, you know, the institutions are much more enduring than ours and so on. A number of our compatriots live by the day, and, you know, they depend on government for their livelihoods. we don't want a situation where we wake up, we cannot provide sanitation services, we cannot provide health services, and so on. These people who cannot afford to go to private medical facilities, teachers are not in the classrooms, those whose children go to public schools. All these matters are matters that our leaders would have to take into account. So in the interest of, the ordinary Ghanaian, and I think both sides are working, I believe, in the interest of ordinary Ghanaians. They have to find a way to continue the conversation. And I just hope that both sides will soften their stance and take a step towards the middle.
I think it's interesting that you say both sides should soften their stance. Now, in the fights, again, loosely used, democracy on one side, uncertainty on the other side, investors looking in on the other side, NPP on one side, NDC on one side. The possibility of some of these issues becoming political, so it's like NPP versus NDC, as opposed to maybe minority-majority fighting for the people. How important is it for example, the minority in these proceedings to kind of be insistent or insist on voting or be insistent? Okay, I think that's what, be insistent on fighting for what will be better for the Ghanaian. How important is that when you put it in the whole equation of uncertainty, democracy, consensus, and all of that? Because when you look at what, for example, the minority was asking for, they are speaking in this case for majority of Ghanaians. So is it worth a gridlock sometimes to, get Ghanaians a better deal? Or should our focus really just be, the democracy, the investors, the moving ahead, and all of that?
Well, it's very interesting that fighting for Ghanaians, I think, is an important role for the opposition and minority parties across. Of course, in a democracy, because perhaps they give voice to those who don't have voice, and usually those who are in government, as we see around the world, will be very cautious in terms of holding their own to account and holding their own their feet to the fire,
of course,
and so on. But you have to remember, governing is not easy. Some tough decisions sometimes have to be taken. I agree we all have to pay taxes. I agree we have to generate revenue, and so on. And like I was telling, I think maybe on your platform yesterday, there's a good reason why sometimes Parliament is not involved in really deeply involved in the process of formulating the budget, because some countries have had that experience where common pool problem, where every single constituency, every MP wants to see his constituency in the budget. And then at the end of the day, the thing is ballooned, and then we don't have the revenues and so on. From where the minister sits, I think he has a much clearer picture in terms of, how much revenue do we need for the kind of expenditure that we have. So if the opposition has to fight for Ghanaians, I think there has to be some realistic conversation to look, if, for instance, we are saying E-levy. E-levy is a revenue source. We are talking about Ajapa. Ajapa is a revenue source, I believe, and so on. Then you are talking about Keta Sea defense. So there has to be some resources in order for government to be able to do this sea defense. So for me, I think there's been some call, for instance, for the E-levy to be revised. Maybe not completely scrapped, because one way or the other, government has to raise revenue. So what is the minority's position? Maybe reduce it. I've seen the university professors have come up with some figures. I don't know whether the minority is thinking along the same line. So if I was in the shoes of the minority fighting for Ghanaians, I would say, look, maybe reduce it to this, and we would accept that. And I think everybody has to has to brace themselves and live with that, because you see, the minority is playing a role of a government in waiting, and trying to endear itself to the citizen.
Of course.
So fight for Ghanaians, but when the fight leads to suffering, if there is gridlock, if there is no budget right now, we have a shutdown, and it begins to bite people. People are not going to say it is the Minister for Finance or it is the MPP. They are going to say, oh, we are suffering because the minority blocked the budget.
Yeah.
So that is where the minority would also have to weigh its cards very, very carefully. So that, yes, fight for us, but make sure that the fight doesn't produce a counter effect.
Okay. All right.
Otherwise, people would remember this moment when they are in the ballot box.
Okay. All right. Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Rashid Draman, for joining us again this morning. He's the Executive Director for the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Thank you for giving us your time. Really appreciate it. But just a few more minutes. Before I let you go, did you want to respond to some of the things you're saying? We don't have a lot of time.
No. Look, our initial demand when we issued a statement on Sunday, that's last week Sunday, was clearly on the fact that we said we had moved. Initially, we said that look, we didn't want the E-levy. We had moved from that stance. We had come to the fact that, look, based on research, the professor had indicated that was 0.5 was a realistic rate. Indeed, we had given a band of between 0.5 and 1%.
Okay. Government
could play around those figures. So it means that we had moved our position. That is very clear in these things. Two, it is our argument with the Minister of Finance has been that all this period, we had about a week and a half where we were indicating that these challenges were there.
Okay.
The Minister of Finance should have taken signal on that to say, look, on the basis of that, let's do this. But because of the arrogance of the majority, and I'm saying this, they still are living in the 7th Parliament, where they had 169 against 106.
That's unfair.
They are living in that dream. And so, Friday was a wake-up call for them. We have indicated, and that is very clear.
Actually, I think the wake-up call was at the 175 point, not even.
No, but you see, but they still thought that they could get their way through and other things. But the point I'm just trying to make in all this is that the minority group will not be unrealistic in terms of our demands.
Okay.
We know that government needs monies to, to work.
Okay.
And therefore, we will not be. All we are saying is that, look, if, for example, you come and you are still insisting on E-levy being above 1%, then we will have to resist it. Okay. Because, look, you know something? We had even said, as part of our proposal, we said, look, apart from just the fact that you should reduce between 0.5 and that, the threshold should not be 100 Ghana cedis. You know that you say up to 100 Ghana cedis, you don't pay a tax on it. You don't pay a tax, the 1.75 doesn't affect it.
He's looking at that too.
So we said that, look, let the threshold be 500 Ghana cedis. Say that if, for example, a woman who is going, because in the strict sense of the word, if I were to be doing...
You have about 30 seconds.
So this is purely something you are even taxing capital of individual.
Yeah.
So we are saying that, look, 500. If people say 500 was too high, we came down to 300. It's okay. We came back to 300. So from all indications, we have been making an effort to meet government. Because you see, you do, look, if you are not ready to move your positions, don't go for negotiations. Okay, your 30 seconds is up. 1 minute on the clock, just your final words. So my final words, the budget will solve a lot of our problems, and I'm for it. And I'm also for the idea that at the committee level, some adjustments will be made. That's why there's appropriation. Now, just to remind Ghanaians, we have Ghanaians' interest at heart. We went into government for that reason, and I'll plead with the NDC to afford us the opportunity, once we've won the election, to govern the nation. And let me add further, government has taxed things and reversed. It happens. Give us that benefit of the doubt. Let's try it. Nothing is in concrete or stone. At some point in time, let me even add, at some point in time,
when it's 1.5 and it's so bad, we may redial. It happens.
Yeah, but we also know that
concrete.
once a tax has been set in motion, it's difficult to for operators even to come back.
Things will happen.
Okay.
You know, so I really think that one. Let's be very clear about one thing. I think the NDC has agreed that 138 is the number. That is very important. So Friday was annulled because they know that 138 should have been present.
Right. Okay.
And then yesterday we had the 138 in the chamber.
And you had to close with that.
We did a very
you had to close with that.
All
right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for giving us your time this morning. Really appreciate it. I hope that, it's a little bit clearer for you what happened yesterday and moving forward, what we can expect. A very big thank you once again. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about renewable energy. Don't go anywhere.